Toss aside the touchy-feely notions of love in business and recognize the real power it holds. Welcome to the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast with host Steve Farber. Drawing on his work with a wide variety of companies from the Fortune 100 to smaller family-owned businesses, Farber shares inspiring interviews with business leaders and proven strategies for how you can create experiences that your customers will love by developing a culture that your employees, teammates, and colleagues love working in. Discover why and how love, at the end of the day, is just damn good business for you too. Here's your host, Steve Farber.
Hi, this is Steve Farber, and welcome to another episode of the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast. I would like to pose a question to you. Can love make business a unifying force in this divisive world that we live in? Now, it should be pretty obvious that given the name of this podcast, that is a leading question. That I believe the answer to that question is yes. Love can make business a place where we can go to bring people together in a world where we are increasingly divided from each other, in a world that is increasingly contentious, in a world that is increasingly polarized. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. The political world is polarized. The religious world is polarized. We hold each other to task for not believing what we believe in, because if you don't believe what I believe, if you don't see truth the way I see truth, then you are, quite simply, a moron. That's what we're doing to each other. And at the same time, as human beings, we always have this wonderful desire, generally speaking, to change the world. We want to do great things. We want to leave the world better than we found it. And where we have gone traditionally in order to take action that we think can change the world for the better is to three primary places or groups. We've gone to religion, we've gone to politics, or we've gone to service organizations. So what happens, of course, in each of those arenas, we're joining like-minded people. We're like-minded around those religious ideas. We're like-minded around the political point of view. We're like-minded around a service mission. And by virtue of that like-mindedness, we can really create movement and momentum that can drive meaningful change because we're all rowing in the same direction, more or less. I want to suggest that there is actually a fourth option: religion, politics, service organizations, and business. Now, that is an option that is typically overlooked and undervalued when it comes to this idea of changing things for the better. Therefore, the potential largely goes untapped. And as a matter of fact, in some circles, business is actually considered a conflicting force to the people that are actually trying to do good. And, there are businesses that earn that reputation, that they're in it for themselves, they're entirely profit-oriented, they don't give a damn about the impact of their decisions, they don't give a damn about the impact on the environment, they don't care about what your experience is in working there, because they're paying you to get the job done, and they're there to make a buck. I'm not saying those businesses don't exist. They do. The problem is that those kinds of businesses, the businesses that operate that way, have painted the entire business world, or encourage us to paint the entire business world with one broad brushstroke that says business equals bad. Business destroys the world. And that is way too broad a generalization. And of course, it is not true. It's not true for you. It's not true for me when we go to work, right? So let's look at what we can do to leverage the positive experience of going to work and what business can potentially be in order to turn it into a place that unifies people in order to create great things, in order to leave the world a better place. And I think all we have to do in order to make that happen is to add one very powerful ingredient to the capitalistic mix. And that one ingredient not only would create an unstoppable agency for doing good in the world, It would also make businesses more profitable. And I bet you can guess what that surprising added ingredient is. Of course you can. It's love. Now listen, first of all, I'm not saying that we should elevate business above politics, religion, and service groups. I'm not saying that we should do away with those. I hope I'm stating the obvious here. In fact, the underlying beliefs that move people toward those arenas are as essential as the institutions themselves. What I am proposing is that we recognize their shortcomings and that we also recognize the potential strengths of business. And then we can take full advantage of business as a force for positive change by operationalizing love as a business principle. So every institution has upsides and downsides. And some of the downsides of traditional institutions are actually upsides when it comes to business. So, for example, we gravitate toward religion and towards politics, a particular political bent, in part, and I would say even in large part, to connect with other people who are like-minded with us. Now, we might open our doors to everyone with an inclusive attitude, and we might acknowledge or respect others who think differently, but there's an unavoidable separation among ideological and or theological lines when we gather together in churches, temples, mosques, or even political meetings, right? I mean, we're there at the exclusion of people. This is increasingly the case in some philanthropic service groups, many of which are grounded in religious or political beliefs. Their cause and purpose are closely connected to a set of ideologies. So, while large groups like that form to do good in support of a religion, a political party, or a service organization, others who are not part of those groups are disconnected from those groups simply because they are of different ideologies or belief systems. Now, here's the thing. Business has the potential to unite for positive change in the world by bringing together those people from those disparate worlds. And this is already happening naturally. For starters, every living adult is part of the economy. We're feeding it, we're benefiting from it, and in most cases, both. And we develop this survival instinct that compels us to work. We all have that in common. Doesn't matter what our age or politics or our faith or our gender or nationality or cultural background. We are all in the business of doing business, even if it's the business of politics, religion, or service work. We are compelled as human beings to go to work to, at the very least, survive and ideally to thrive. And it's that doing business part that brings us together. And this is especially true in the broader business world of commerce. We live in a global economy with an increasingly interconnected workforce. Every aspect of the workforce, employee groups, customer bases, outside partners, all of them are more diverse than ever. And business requires that those people of different cultures, different nationalities, different beliefs work together inside their organizations and across various other organizations. Whereas in political, religious, and some service groups, members tend to segregate into, let's call them holy huddles, where everyone thinks alike. And that's fine. That's what those arenas are for. And more often than not, social media only adds to that siloed kind of groupthink cultural element. But business often allows us to spend time together and get to know people as individuals. So here's the thing. We come together in the office, whether it's a real office or a virtual office, and each of us continues to hold our different beliefs, right? You have one religion, I have another religion. You're Democrat, I'm Republican. You're independent, I'm libertarian. Whatever it is, we continue to hold those different beliefs, but we go to work and we develop mutual respect by doing something very simple, working side by side for a common business mission. And it is much harder to hate or disrespect someone when you've gotten to know them when you've learned about their families, when you've heard about their struggles, when you've celebrated their successes, human being to human being. And that relationship part, that's what provides a bridge that allows us of disparate ideas to find common ground. And then we take that empathy that we experience at work, we take it with us when we go back to our siloed groups, when we go to church, when we go to our political meetings, and when we discuss our beliefs with others who may disagree. In other words, we're practicing at work to find common cause, common ground with people of differing ideas, and then we could take that out into the world at large because we've just gotten better at discussing our beliefs with other people who may believe differently. And at the very least, we can end up disagreeing respectfully. Wouldn't that be a step forward nowadays? And when people who look different, think differently, and hold different beliefs find a common bond and then pull together in the same direction, the movement and the momentum is unstoppable. And that's how business can change the world. And I've seen this play out all over the world. For example, Rotary International is, it's a company that's been around, not a company, but a service organization that's been around for a very long time. And their reputation is, it's a bunch of old white, guys sitting around eating steak at their weekly meetings. And it is so far from the reality of what Rotary is. So Rotary does amazing work all around the world. And it focuses on bringing business leaders together and then unifies those business leaders in a common service cause, like bringing water to people who need it, like helping with earthquake recovery. There's just so many things they've done for so many generations now. And I had the opportunity to speak at Rotary's International Convention in Germany, and I got this hit. I got this take of all these people. There were 25,000 people, 10,000 people in the room where I was speaking, probably from 185 different countries, something along those lines. And every one of them represented this common desire and this common practice of serving their fellow human being. And what you may not know about Rotary is that they pride, unless you're a Rotarian, is that they pride themselves on their diversity. They are not a religious organization. In fact, they draw people from all religions. This is what they're proud of. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter what your gender is. Gay, straight, conservative, liberal, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, atheist, it doesn't matter. And in fact, the more diverse, the better. It's part of their value system. And then you bring those diverse people together and say, let's fix something together. Really miraculous things happen. And that's why I love Rotary. Or let's go over to the world of business, right? I called Rotary a business a second ago. That's wrong. They bring business people together. But let's go into the world of business, because that is, of course, what we're focusing on here. Let's talk for a moment about American Greetings. So American Greetings, 100-plus-year-old iconic company. They're based in Ohio. They make, greeting cards and wonderful art and ways for people to connect with each other. And in fact, their mission statement is, we create happiness, laughter, and love, which is a great mission statement and one that's entirely appropriate for a greeting card company, right? We create happiness, laughter, and love. But you know what? That's not just a marketing phrase for them. That is what they strive to do internally as well. And after creating that particular credo, they got really focused in on a complementary purpose statement that went along with it, which is their purpose is to make the world a more thoughtful and caring place. All right? So again, we create happiness, laughter, and love. We make the world a more thoughtful and caring place. Now notice that neither of those statements talks about things like market share, profit, or revenue. Although believe me, American Greetings also clearly strives to excel in those areas, and when they're not, that's a problem, right? Because that's what businesses focus on, but that is not their primary reason for existing. And if you take the sayings and the mission statements and the purpose statements and put them aside for a moment, what really matters is how the company lives out those statements. that it says are important. So this is a company with, more than 25,000 employees. So obviously it's not perfect, and people have different experiences working there. But I will tell you, I have walked the halls of American Greetings headquarters, which they call their creative studios in the Cleveland area, and I've studied their culture. And I can tell you that AG employees strive to operationalize love in the way that they treat each other, in the cards that they produce, in their marketing campaigns, and in the way they give back to their community and to each other. And it is just clear as a bell when you walk through the halls of their creative studios in Cleveland, a place that was built based on significant employee input. I mean, employees gave input to everything from how much natural light there should be in the place. And you see the words happiness, laughter, and love painted beautifully on the hallway in the lobby area when you walk into this place. That's your first impression of this company. And then everywhere you go and everything you experience in the physical environment reflects happiness, laughter, and love. That creates a palpable vibe of togetherness. How simple is that? How beautiful is that? And it's got nothing to do, obviously, I'm stating the obvious, it's got nothing to do with the political persuasions or religious beliefs or the gender or ethnicity of anybody that works there. And I've seen that unifying power of love in business, in every kind of business. I've seen it in shipping companies. I've seen it in healthcare companies, engineering companies, collections agencies, manufacturing companies, retail companies, and in just about any industry that you can imagine. Doesn't matter what kind of business we do. We don't have to be greeting card people to greet people and to make them feel welcome. That's the good news. In some ways, unfortunately, some businesses are also migrating toward that more divisive mentality. It's like that divisiveness that we live in is working its way inside the halls of companies. For example, for some companies, I won't name names, but they have a well-meaning push for social justice, let's say. Some businesses in pursuit of that social justice, sometimes they can blur the line between capitalism and activism. And while the results of this can sometimes be positive, at other times they're not, right? Because I'm coming to work to earn a paycheck. I'm not necessarily coming to work to subscribe to a particular form of activism, let's say. And yet, in some businesses, the unspoken rule, it's not going to say it in their employee manuals, but the unspoken rule is that you have to think and believe like us if you want to work with us or do business with us. And listen, businesses need a higher purpose, and every business culture has to be joined by common values. And there are always moral and ethical lines that should never be crossed. But there also has to be room for diverse opinions and beliefs within those guidelines without any kind of undue shaming of those who are different from the norm of that business population. That's what happens when you bring human beings together. It's a messy process. There's always going to be contention. There's always going to be argument. There's always going to be debate. And oftentimes that's a really great thing to have, which brings me back to love as a business principle. In my 3 decades now of coaching and consulting leaders around the world, I have found that in order to operationalize love in a business, we need to pursue a very simple mantra and a very simple, at the same time, framework. So this is both a mantra and a framework and a way of acting. And here it is. Do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. Do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. 3 parts to that. The first part, do what you love, is the personal part. It's about discovering what you're meant to do and then doing it, finding that connection of your own heart to your work. The third part, who love what you do, is the reciprocity. It's about reaping the business rewards that comes from those who benefit from what you do. And that middle part, in the service of people, is the context. That's the moral context. That's the ethical context. And that's the business context. It calls for us to love others with our work by serving others with our work. I'm doing what I love. I'm using that to serve you. And if I do that well, then we find that common ground that allows us to put political, religious, and ideological differences aside. And here's the punchline. Our business benefits, we each personally benefit, and the world benefits. We might not eradicate hate and division. Who knows, we might. But let's assume even for a moment that we won't. We might not eradicate hate and division, but operationalizing love in business can only make the world a better place. And you know what? No matter the outcome, we'd certainly all be better off for trying.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Love is Just Damn Good Business with Steve Farber. Join us again next time, because when customer and employee satisfaction just isn't enough anymore, we are here to back you up with specific ideas to operationalize love to make an enormous difference in your business, personal life, and the world around you. Visit our website at stevefarber.com to leave a review. And don't forget to share the love with your colleagues and friends, because after all, it's just damn good business.